So good. We left that yellow, that pale yellow, and it's of course the governing rule here is light to dark. We start with light, the lightest colours, and work progressively through the palette to the darks throughout the work. So left to set a little bit. So let's progress now. The next colour I'm going to touch of the palette here is this one here, ultramarine, that deep dark blue, going towards midnight, going towards the evening, definitely. Let's just do a little quick rendition of a swatch with that. Here we go. Let's see, let's just see it there. Yes, that's the ultramarine, and I am going to combine that with alizarin crimson. This is this crimson red, deep red, just a touch of that, and you go into the sort of mauve violets. It's quite interesting, that. So I'm going to use that combination, and no time to lose. Let's launch. And I've got my blotter. Have your blotter ready, just in case. We might be feel you're taking life into your own hands here, but you are. But explore and generate, and you remember that little trick with the blotting. I've just gone a little darker at the top. Always sky's darkest, darker at the top. And increasing that through, I'm going to make some striations across here across the sky. I'm going to sort of start to indicate what might be perceived as the underside of clouds, remembering that rule about thinnest at the bottom. Now be bold. You've got these washes have got to be complete. They can't be tentative. It's about the palette. It's about those combinations of mixes and the combination of colours that you select and use in your palette. And as I say, always use your swatch. Just try out the sort of colours that you're bringing together, and then commit. So darker at the top. And this brush is giving this effect of these flat brushes of the sort of striations. You can add a little bit of water and let the paint sort of float about on the surface. Remember, left side lightest, but we're just trying to induce that image of the sort of light, darkest top of sky, but keeping the colour interesting and fresh. And it is that sense of sunset, so there's a sense of warmth too in some of this. I'm going to put just a touch of the alizarin through here, and you can see I'm just gradating across, and I'm conscious of where those balloons will eventually sit or float, I should say. So just making sure that light, especially the left sides, are light. If the paint comes over it at all, it's all part of the effect. Expect that it will happen. Don't be disappointed. It's something you'll work into and work with. So you can see I'm creating a darker effect now in the sky, and I'm going to just add again a little bit of blue at the top there, and there perhaps, and I'm just going to with some water, not so much pigment. I'm going to just take off some of the paint, or lift it, I should say. You don't take off, you sort of lift it away. I'm just getting back to the light of the paper. Thus. Okay, so we're starting now to increase the sort of tonality in the sky, and I'm going to just add a little bit of blue dark at the bottom here, sort of furthest away, maybe just indicating a little bit here. Good. So, in conclusion of the sky, we'll now just place, and remember in the ultramarine, we're balancing the ultramarine with the alizarin, and we're just I'm just using this flat brush here, and you can use at the base here. I'm using a striation of just some small marks. This is sort of clouds in the showing the clouds in shadow from the setting sun. Remember, to our left of the composition. Just gently evolve these colours. This now is very personal in terms of your own understanding and observation of cloud against sky, the setting sun. Just keeping this very simple. It's really much more about the colours, the sort of evocative yellow, alizarin, and the mixture of blues to put into context. And we'll develop this to a finish, and I'll take a still before the next sequence. Good, right everyone, so we've got some sky on the go now, that evening sky or even dawn sky, whichever way you want to see it. And now let's start with the background, so sky meets land, that horizon line, and move down through the painting. Let's get across the whole picture space now. So again, the swatch really important. I've just mixed that ultramarine and alizarin crimson, that crimson together to make a quite a violet sort of colour there. And I'm looking at that. Look, I'm using the swatch just to show it up against that skyline there at the horizon. And what I'm looking for is a very simple sort of line. Distant hills, I think. Yeah, distant hills. Let's just conjure that up. So I might be going a little bit higher here and down through. Let's bring it up a little bit here, something like that. Okay, nice flat wash again. There it is. So that's land meeting the sky at the horizon. And I'm going to just take that wash down a little bit further, a bit lighter. Same blue. It's still that alizarin blue. And I'm just going to go across slightly across the whole, and I think what we've got to do is just let this settle, just let it dry off a little bit. So it's quite light. So I'm going to take that blue now right down to the bottom of the picture space like that. Recording good. So next stage of the foreground. So very good. Let that settle. We've got that horizon line now established. Let's come forward. Let's come forward from that horizon line. Let's get a little bit closer to the foreground. So we're in middle ground now. So it's still the blue with the ultramarine blue with the alizarin. It's slightly darker now, and I'm going to just add a tiny amount of that yellow. That yellow we use in the sky, that cadmium yellow. It's going to make it a bit darker. So there's another rhythm, if you like, of foreground, middle ground, approaching foreground, hills, distant hills, something like that. Oh, that's all quite inventive. There. So that's coming a bit closer, and with the addition of that yellow, it's made it slightly, dare I say, greener and darker. Blue looking too. So I've got that coming in a bit closer. So there's another separate band approaching foreground. Let's let that dry. So we now need to start coming even closer to the foreground, and you can see I've got this green on the go now. It's a sort of very quiet green, grey green. It's because I've got the blue, the ultramarine, and I put a bit of that lemon yellow in with that, and it's going to go that bit darker, and it's got a touch of the green. Now here on this scale here, what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to start to indicate possible tree line. first sort of tree line here. I've got another brush. Another brush. First time I'm using a sort of pointer brush here. So I'm sort of just sort of thinking around, moving into this foreground. Now, don't be too precious with this. Again, it's just mark making. You can practice this in your sketchbook. But what I'm trying here to do is indicate now that there's the first sort of, we've got the topography of the landscape, hills receding, and now we've got some features. There's some foliage, some distant sort of tree line or wood or something there. So we see how we're starting to break this sort of picture space up where these balloons have come from, or are going to land. So that's the next stage, just a darker tint. It's got the blues in it, but it's just tinting it green. And as I come forward, these marks, these trees and bushes and so on in the fields, I could indicate some directional lines, some divisions here of the fields and trees attaining there to that. So you can see I'm beginning now to sort of map out the foreground where I want to arrive, and again, just playfully using the sort of brush, different brush marks will give different sort of sense and the marks. And I'm working within the blue, that blue tint with alizarin, and as I said, using a little bit of that yellow in now to hint at the green and green foliage. Very good. So final stages now, contemplating the finish, or at this stage of the whole painting, this foreground area. You can see here I've just glazed across with that yellow, that cadmium yellow, very lightly across over that blue. It's given that tinge of green meeting yellow of the sun or dusk, and now it's just that sense of the foreground, and taking one's time, using different size brushes for different marks, being a little bit more precision, a little bit more emphasis, I suppose, on drawing. Really trying to sort of feel the sense of a tree set against in shadow against this bright sky, and its consequent shadow thrown onto the field beyond, and so forth. This is a simple sort of mark making, judgment from the palette, just continuing that sense of transition from background, that horizon line as stated, to middle ground, and now this foreground. And again, this is about sort of observation. Do some practice in your sketchbook, and it's the way one works with your watercolours when you're out in the field, outside, and working in the field, in outdoors. It's important to make observations, look at lighting conditions and so forth, and in this case, implementing these sort of observations in our studio rendering of this high vantage point over fields, receding fields to the hills and the sky above. So very, very good, everyone. Let's pause there, and we're ready for the next stage of our painting.